I have just landed in Orlando, Florida. Just got through with the big O'Reilly Leadership Conference in Dallas, Texas. We gave away my Tracker 195 that I filmed out of this last year. One of the O'Reilly managers, Corey, from out in Phoenix, won that boat. Ironically, it's kind of amazing. I'll be in Phoenix this next week, as a matter of fact. But I'm here in Orlando for a really special event. I've mentioned it a time or two while we've been doing things last week or so. My old buddy John Fox of the American Angler television show. He's been a great friend of mine, done a lot for me back early in my career. And he's having his 90th birthday party. And as I've said, if you get a chance to go to somebody's 90th birthday party, you better do that. And John's son, which I probably haven't seen since he was about 15 years old, Randy Fox, picked me up here at the Orlando airport, and I guess we got about a 45-minute or an hour drive over to Cindy's house, John's daughter, and we were just visiting here, and this is an amazing thing, and we're gonna be having some fun tonight, I'm sure. I asked Cindy, I said, you know, I've got to work at that O'Reilly's Leadership Conference, and I'll be there probably until about noon, but since I'm in Dallas, perhaps we can get a direct to Orlando and I'll be able to get down there. And says, is the party going to be in the afternoon or the nighttime? Now, I think that's a pretty fair question for a 90th birthday party. Is that 11 o'clock in the morning and over at 11:30, or what are we talking about? And her answer was, well, Jimmy, you know, Dad, when he gets to singing karaoke, he'll probably sing till midnight. I said, I'm in. So here we are, and we're heading out to that party. We'll see y'all at the party.
I actually met John Fox, I don't even really know how many years ago, at a tournament at Lake Sam Rayburn in Texas. That was a Project Sports Incorporated tournament. We called them PSI. That was before BASS, before FLW, before any of the big tournaments that we have nowadays, and that was the big national tournaments that we were fishing. And I remember after the tournament, I'd done really well in the tournament. I caught a lot of fish. I caught a lot of them on a little tiny Bill Norman crankbait, actually, a bait much like what the American Original Deep Smoothie is today, kind of like that bait. And I just got on a bunch of fish up in some bushes the final day of that tournament and just smoked them, just absolutely smoked them, and finished up in the top, 4 or 5 of the tournament. But I remember John Fox coming over, and John Fox, of course, had a television show called The American Angler, or John Fox Outdoors. I'm really not sure. It's been called 2 or 3 different names. I think on ESPN it was called John Fox, The Outdoorsman, John Fox, or something like that. But that's just too many years back to remember. But I remember John coming up to me and handing me a handful of worms. And that was the first time that anyone had ever given me anything to fish with. Of course, we get lures and baits for all over the country now. We are just so, I buy a lot of fishing lures, but we get so many free that I amortize the cost out of the ones I buy, and they probably cost $0.25 a piece or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, John gave me a handful of Mr. Twister worms. A guy down there named Rick Willie had put a twister tail on a worm. Now, the plastic worms hadn't really been around too many years anyway. And he put a twister tail on this worm, and John gave me a handful of them, maybe, 20 or 30. It seemed like a lot to me. And to get something free, it was just absolutely amazing. It really was. And I took those worms, and I came back, and I kind of gave them to a lot of my buddies at home. I'd give them one worm is all I'd give them, because I didn't have very many. I said, try this worm. You won't believe what it looks like in the water. And that was kind of the early deal, of kind of the first deal that I got something free in fishing. And also it sort of taught me what promotion is all about, and how tournaments have been so successful in promoting products, because John gave worms to several different people, and I went back to Oklahoma, somebody went back to Louisiana, somebody went back to Missouri, all these different states, and kind of got the word out on Mr. Twister worms, which were, one of the most successful plastic worms of all time. Before we were on ESPN, John Fox was on there, and he had a nice run on ESPN as ESPN was growing their fledgling network. And when we started on ESPN, as an example, to tell you, they had 30 million homes, and now they have in excess of 90 million homes. So John was real instrumental in not only giving me the first thing I ever got somebody just give me to fish with, but to teach me a lot about promotion, and he's always been there to help me. Being invited to John's birthday, his 90th birthday, was really a special thrill. I couldn't believe it when Cindy, his daughter, called and talked to Chris about it. And Chris told me, and I said, well, yeah, I'll go. When is it, man? I wouldn't miss that for anything. And she told me, and it was actually the day that I was working at the O'Reilly Leadership Conference in Dallas, where we gave away my Tracker 195 boat that I'd been fishing that year and doing the television shows on. We gave it to an O'Reilly manager. But we were through at that event about noon, and I said, well, you know, I'm in Dallas. I can probably catch a direct flight to Orlando and get down there. And I said, and I called her, and I told her, I said, Cindy, I said, I can come, but I can't get there till about 6 or 7 o'clock that evening. Is the party in the daytime or the nighttime? I mean, a guy's having his 90th birthday party. You figure it might be in the afternoon, and the party might last about 30 minutes, right? I mean, you're 90 years old. Come on.
The end is near, and so I face the final curtain. Oh, my friend.
Honestly, the first song that John sang karaoke was I Did It My Way. John's always had a beautiful voice, and it still sounded really pretty doggone good, even at 90 years old. And yes, he did sing one song after midnight, and he sang several throughout the evening. Later, when John quit all of his television work and moved down to Florida, he became a fishing guide down there, and I actually repaid the favor of being on John's fishing show when I was just a kid by actually having him on Jimmy Houston Outdoors many times. And a lot of the times we were fishing some of the lakes that he had down there. And John had he was always setting up something that was special. And what he did was he actually got in some of the Orange Grove lakes down there that people used for irrigation. And some of them were as big as maybe 1,000 acres. A lot of them were 200, 300, 400 acres. So they're a pretty good sized lake, and they were loaded with big bass. And John would go and make friends with the owners of those, and he would kind of help them take care of them and keep them clean and kind of watch over them if they would let him go fish there. And of course they did. He's just such a nice guy and was always able to pretty much could sell ice to an Eskimo. He'd talk people into things. And so he had all of these great Orange Grove lakes that they used for irrigating. He had all those that he could fish down there. And I had some of the best fishing trips in the world with John. And one of the amazing things that happened years and years ago, probably before most folks that are watching this birthday party were born, as a matter of fact. But John pulled out a worm and hooked it in the middle and said, Jimmy, try this. And I said, well, the worm's hooked wrong. And he said, Jimmy, it's called a wacky worm. And I'd never heard of a wacky worm. And he gave me a spinning rod, and he said, you got to throw it on light line. And so we fished a wacky worm. First one I had ever seen years and years and years ago. That wacky worm came out of New Jersey, I believe. I met the guy that actually developed that, and he told me he hooked it that way intentionally, but I never did really believe him. I think that's the only way he knew how to hook up a worm, and it worked. And it's still a fantastic technique today. But he hooked up that wacky worm, and he gave me a spinning rod, and about the third or fourth cast, I catch an 8-pounder on it. And I don't know how many fish I caught on that wacky worm, and that obviously I, started using those in tournaments, and that became an extremely popular and great way to fish, and still is today. But so many times things have happened when John would take me on a guiding trip, and he was always ready to help me down there no matter what. What a friend, what a great guy. 90 years old, partying until after midnight.
So thank you for being here, and God bless all of you.